I believe that you can turn depression into productivity. And I tend to believe that after the war, being isolated, the youngsters here had a sort of collective depression. So that was the moment that we said, okay, we can't travel. For example, we can't go to Berlin. And why we can't bring this Berlin in Kosovo? That was the real question that pushed our limits. Even though that we are isolated, this country can still bloom. Right. This country can still provide. And I'm really happy to say that Kosovo is in the global map of the cultural scene. You know, today, if you Google it up, or whatever you do, wherever your sources are, you're gonna bump into something about Kosovo.
Tell me about the cultural scene here in Pristina. The nightlife scene is becoming pretty legendary. Talk about that a little bit.
You know, we always say Pristina doesn't have a sea, river, or lake. Mm-hmm. So what do we have left is the nightlife. It always has been the nightlife, you know, because Kosovo being a young country, you know, with more than 60% under the 30th age still, mm-hmm. It makes the city vibrant and really vital on the fact of, you know, that nightlife can bring so much into the city. And it definitely pushes the boundaries when it comes to the concept of, oh my God. When it comes to the concept of, you know, being isolated.
Yep.
And within that scope, you started to think, because you can turn, I believe that you can turn depression into productivity. Mm-hmm. And I tend to believe that after the war, being isolated, the youngsters here had a sort of collective depression.
Right.
But we always use this for benefit, for good of us. And nightlife was the driving mechanism of the youngsters in here. And this is really what makes not only Pristina, all of Kosovo dynamic in this aspect.
Yeah, so the nightlife almost became the outlet after the war for a younger generation, right? I mean, it became that kind of outlet to start to release so much of what was happening.
It definitely did, because after the war, nothing was functioning properly.
Right.
And coming out of war, this country was a tabula rasa case, you know.
Right.
And in such cases, everyone is, you know, free to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And there were these first collectives that came, because nightlife here was also good before the war.
Right.
But what made it after the war, that we started from the scratch.
Yeah.
And you could squat places, you know, you could enter venues, you could get them, and it was, you know, just think of when the Berlin Fall happened, and the people from East went to West, and you know, they found everything in there, and they could do everything basically. This was also Pristina.
Yeah. So tell me about how you got started. So I mean, you've become a major part of the music scene here, major part of the cultural scene here. Tell me about your background. How did you get started in this?
My history in here is kind of messy, because in my young ages I went abroad to finish my high school and university. And that was good for me, because I could see the life, how it's happening in there. Right. And I could see these big differences of what is happening back in Kosovo.
Yep.
And you know, Kosovo was providing, but maybe we were not providing it in the purest form and in its most essential form that it was needed.
Yeah.
So having that experience from the abroad, I said to myself, when I finished my bachelor degrees in Vienna, I said to myself, okay, I guess it's time to go back, you know, and to do something in your place, because there is no place like your homeland.
Right.
And being so, and being the tabula rasa case, mm-hmm. you could provide anything you would imagine, basically.
Yep.
And the scariest and most difficult part was to start it.
Yeah.
For me, the starting point was back in 2012, when we started our organization, Hapsira, which translated English means space, a space for all.
Yep.
And when we started that mission, you know, I was towards like, if I should produce music, or I should do this.
Right.
Producing music was not the case because we were isolated country.
Yep.
Even if I started to produce, I wouldn't penetrate the outside world of Kosovo,
Right.
because you can't move freely,
Right.
and that makes it a big problem. So that was the moment that we said, okay, we can't travel, we can't do this. Why not we don't try the things in Kosovo? For example, we can't go to Berlin, and why we can't bring this Berlin in Kosovo? That was the real question that pushed our limits.
Right. And that was the electronic music scene in Berlin, right? That was so big to say, like, look, if we can't go there to be a part of it, then we're just going to bring it here.
That was
right?
it. That's how the story began. And we entered the premises of Relindia, which is an ex-printing house, back
Yeah.
in 2013. It was empty. It was under the privatization agency. It was kind of in a brick of, being privatized or not.
Yeah.
And we entered there with the help of the German embassy and the municipality of Pristina for many years. We really managed to throw so many events in there, like more than 25 events.
Yep.
That were like a stamp of our resilience and resistance that, okay, guys, really, even though that we are isolated, this country can still bloom.
Right.
This country can still provide. And it really showed character, and the youth started to believe in the fact that, okay, we can really provide out of here.
Right. Yep. And you were trying to really, at that point, with that space, you were really trying to kind of combine this electronic music scene that
Yeah.
you were bringing into Kosovo
Yeah.
with this really unique history, the Yugoslavian history, and to kind of sort of integrate those two things together in a different way, right?
Yes, because the thing is that our events were pure underground,
Right.
techno music,
Yep.
and that always connects with old buildings, old factories,
Right.
And this was the place, Relindia was the place,
Right.
and our mission, out of just making events in there, became a totally different story. We
Right.
wanted to protect the space.
Yep.
And doing so, also the people that were following us, our audience started to get that thing inside of them.
Yeah.
And it started to become a story.
Yep.
When it started to become a story, we started to break the borders. We started to get outside Kosovo. We started first to get regionally. We started to have regional audience. And then out of nowhere, we started to have requests from really well-known platforms such as Boiler Room,
Yep.
Mix Mag, DJ Mag, Tracks Mag. These are all magazines from the Western world.
Yep.
And we saw them coming in.
To talk about the music scene
Talk
here.
about the
Yeah.
music, to present the scene of Kosovo to the outside world,
Yep.
and to show what is really happening in the middle of the Balkans.
Right.
Because we always tend to think that Balkans, okay, because I told you previously, Balkan, if you translate it in Turkish, means bal is honey and kan is blood.
Right.
Bloody and
honey.
And honey.
Yep.
So there is something melting in here, and you should be coming and visiting it.
Right.
And Relindia was really, that place was really a spark of something new that was coming in.
Yeah.
And that was Kosovo being presented to the outside world.
So where is it today? Right. Where is the music scene today? Where's the cultural scene of Kosovo today?
Today, I can optimistically say that we are doing so good. As said, in last 2 years, we also had many major events coming in here. Manifesta was one of those. It's a biennale happening annually.
Yep.
They came in here in 2023, end of 2022, beginning of 2023.
Yep.
And foremost, the most known factor for now is Dua Lipa's festival that is happening in Kosovo.
Sunny Hill, right? Yep.
Sunny Hill.
Yep.
And these two factors show that, okay, Kosovo is one step forward than it was like 5 years ago or 6 years ago or before the pandemic.
Yep.
So it really, it is pushing forward, It is pushing forward positively. The youth are more creative than ever. They are more optimistic than ever. because we tend to see this migration process happening throughout the Balkans, you know.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that this country is being emptied totally.
Right.
You know, you can see people like me. We are still, you know, resisting, and we are still here, and we are still believing that
Yep.
this place is gonna bloom more than ever in the next 10 years.
So, you know, one of the things you see, I think, in a lot of, and you know, one of the big parts of the story of Kosovo, unfortunately,
Yeah.
has been kind of a migration, you know, out of Kosovo.
Yeah.
How much do you think the cultural scene and the nightlife scene are helping to? You kind of just alluded to this, are helping to stop that outflow and also help to bring back a lot of maybe, you know, younger people who have left and now are looking at Kosovo and saying, you know what, there's a lot going on. This is a place I should move back to.
The true fact out of this is that, yeah, after the pandemic, we saw a surge of migration in Kosovo. But on the other hand, these last 2 years, I see people who have migrated way before, when, you know, youngsters, maybe their parents migrated to the outside Kosovo.
Right.
I see them coming back now.
Right.
You know, there is this shift. You know, there are youngsters going, but there are the others who maybe were not born in Kosovo that are coming back.
Right.
So this makes me optimistic about Kosovo, because Kosovo is right in the middle of the Balkans.
Yeah.
And this place is never gonna stop, you know, because it's a cross bridging, it's a bridge between Europe and Asia.
Right.
So it will always have this, you know, movement in it.
Yep.
And culture definitely is one of the major factors in which the youth trusts in here.
Yeah.
Because having count those organizations and having initiatives such as Doku Fest, many local initiatives that are happening in Pristina, this shows us this is a never-ending game for Kosovo.
Yeah.
Culturally, I would say.
Yep. If you're talking to friends outside of Kosovo, or maybe even the U.S., somebody who's never visited here before, right? Mm-hmm. And you're trying to say to them, "Hey, you need to come here, and you need to." You and I were talking about this outside. It's there's a feel, right? How do you explain that to somebody? How do you tell somebody you need to experience this?
I can give you examples of bookings that we had done from for the international DJs, you know.
Yep.
And we have booked really renowned names to the Red India premises back in the time. And when we would invite them, you know, at first glimpse, when their managers would approach them, the first glimpse would be, okay, difficult process to do it, difficult to book them. But when the DJs, when those renowned DJs, they would just go into the Google, they Googled a bit of Kosovo.
Right.
They would be the ones to say, okay, I want to go there. No matter the price that I'm getting,
Right.
I want to go there. Because there is something happening in there.
Yeah.
So we have done enough, I believe culturally, we have done enough to make people believe that this is the place to be if you want to have fun.
Yep.
And where's the fun? The fun is in the entertainment.
That's right.
And culture, nightlife, arts are the major things that provide the entertainment.
Yep.
Today, I do believe it was really more difficult before the pandemic to explain this to some foreigner.
Yeah.
Today, you don't need to do that, you know?
Yeah.
Because now I can truly say, and I'm really happy to say that Kosovo is in the global map of the cultural scene. You know, today, if you Google it up or whatever you do, wherever your sources are, you're gonna bump into something about Kosovo.
Yep.
So I would say just come to Kosovo, and that's it. I do believe that they would believe the fact to be in here.
And just feel
straight
it.
up, straight, yeah, to feel
Yeah.
it, yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So you're performing internationally now,
Yeah.
outside of Kosovo.
Yes,
How
luckily.
much? And you know, how much of that, you know, of your ability to, you know, be out, you know, globally and start to bring a piece of Kosovo to the world, you know. What's the role of that, do you think, in helping to educate people about, hey, there's this really unique set of people that are here that are doing pretty amazing things now on the global scene?
You know, the thing is that now, as you said, we are free to move.
Yep.
And this was the major thing that we needed, you know?
Yeah.
To be able to go out and to tell the people that, you know, it's not that things are happening in Kosovo just by chance, you know?
Right.
It is something that we know. It is something that we feel, you know?
Yeah.
Even though we were isolated, we were following the outside world. And now going and being, you know, right, for example, last year I had this possibility to perform in one of the most major platforms in Berlin. And when I went there and I started to have this conversation, they would feel like we were not one step, but 10 steps behind of it.
Mm-hmm.
But while having this conversation, they said, you're not behind.
Right.
You are like speaking in the way that you're more than forward than us, because we have this enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
We are still enthusiastic. We don't do the things out of materialism in here.
Right.
We still do the things out of love.
Right.
And this is for me the most important fact. All the youth living in Kosovo, because we are so creative, we are so intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the migration is not happening just by a fault or by, you know, by a chance. People are talented. This is why also they are migrating.
Yeah.
And they are finding jobs all across Europe, wherever they go. So being in here, if someone is here, like I am now, we do the things out of love and passion.
Yep.
And this is the major fact that triggers the outside world's minds to be in here.
Right. And that's that feeling, right?
That's
that
the
we
thing.
talked about. That.
If you are here, you're gonna feel it.
Right.
We talked it before. Before being in Kosovo, you're gonna create so many things in your head. Once you touch down to Kosovo, everything you would potentially that it would have a negative connotation, it would disappear straight away. As you are in the airport, or if you go by as you cross the border.
Yep. So, last question. We're here 5 years from now. You and I are sitting here at Lily's and having this conversation. What is Kosovo like then? What's the music scene like? What's the cultural scene like? You know, over the coming years.
I totally believe that we will push the boundaries forward because now that we are free to move, I see this in the new generations coming up, Gen Z. I see that they are really open to penetrate through the culture and arts. And we see many artists now going all across the world.
Right.
And this will automatically, you know, provide more points for this state.
Yeah.
You know, because they will go there and there will be exchanges made.
Right.
Other than the audience, we will see many more initiatives coming in here.
Yep.
And I totally believe that in 5 years from now, you will see a totally different Kosovo. I totally believe in this fact.
Yep.
And one fact, the culture will never die in Kosovo. This is for sure. This is for sure. This is for sure.
What is the culture? If you had to try to explain that culture to somebody, what is that culture of Kosovo today?
Culture of Kosovo is our resistance, I would say. The resistance to not be a part of the capitalism that is happening all across, even though it is hitting us hard as well nowadays. Culture in here is being free. Being free. For me, that is culture, you know? To have a mindset that is not like other.
Right.
You know? For me, it was this always, you know? As an artist, I have always done to believe that an artist has values that can't be bought through materialism.
Right.
And that's the freedom.
Yep.
That's the freedom. And that freedom is achieved by culture.
And the freedom to go create as you want to, the freedom to build, and whether that's arts or it's somebody building a business,
Definitely.
or somebody starting a restaurant or whatever it is, it's the freedom to be able to do that.
Definitely.
We've, you know, it's funny, we've had this conversation a few times since we've, you know, over the different episodes and different people we've talked to as we've been doing this, about this kind of the same concept of freedom, right? And that, you know, it's very rare anywhere in the world where you really see freedom at its earliest stages.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's what you see here, right? That not only is the population young, but the country is so young. And that creates this completely open landscape, whether it's for the arts or it's for the economy or it's for anything. It's a rare place in the world where you see that kind of freedom at its earliest stages.
As I told you earlier, Pristina doesn't provide much more than the nightlife.
Right.
And the youth here are really concentrated on creating.
Right.
Because the fact that Kosovo is still a young country, economically it's not doing good. We can't produce. We always, we import rather than we export.
Right.
But culture is something that you can create and export it immediately.
Right.
It doesn't need more than the creativity.
Right.
And this is the real sign that the youth in here are so intellectual and creative in this process.
Yep.
And that is something that you can't buy. Either you are born with it or not.
Right. Right.
So our youth has this.
Yep.
So this is why everything can die in Kosovo. Even the war can start again maybe, but the entertainment, the culture, the arts will never stop here.
Yeah.
I can make you sure of it. So if in 5 years when you come today, I don't know what the situation will be, but I totally can guarantee you that we will still have fun.
You can
through the nightlife.
You don't know what anything's going to be, but
yeah.
we're going to have a good time when we find out, right?
That's 100%.
That's awesome. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for everything
Thank you
you're doing
so
for the
much.
country.
Thank you so much.